Hey yo, salute to the people. It's the social forecast. Today is Monday, October 14th, 2019. It's about 10 minutes to 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I got a couple things I want to talk to y'all about with this story that came across my desk Saturday morning, well, early Saturday morning, Friday night into Saturday morning around 2 a.m. Out in Fort Worth, Texas. Um, a neighbor called the local police department, non-emergency number, requesting a wellness check on one of his neighbors. I guess according to the neighbor, he knew his neighbor, knew that she stayed home with her young nephew. I think they're 7, 8 years old. I think he said. It was around a little after 2 a.m. The neighbor saw the front door open, the lights on, decided to call the police to have them come out and do a wellness check. Now, for those of you who don't know what a wellness or a welfare check is, um, it's basically just the police coming out, seeing if there's any issues, any concerns, make sure everybody in the residence is okay. This neighbor, in the statement that he gave to the local news media, said, "I didn't report um, any domestic violence, any noise complaints, any arguing, nothing of the sort. It was just a simple call and request to do a wellness check because I know that my neighbor lives over there. I know that she has young kids over there. And, at the time of morning that it was, and with our front door being open, you never know." So him trying to be a good neighbor, this man just called the police department, reported it's not an emergency, no reason for them to come with guns drawn and sirens wailing. It's just, I want to make sure my neighbor's okay. That part's cool. That part's fine. I have no issues with this neighbor calling the police for a wellness check. As part of a community, part of a neighborhood, you should feel like the people who you live on the same street as, or, the next street over, or what have you. You should feel like your neighbors have your best interests at heart. And there should be that sense of community where everybody looks out for each other. Um, where the story goes a little bit left, though, is that this neighbor says that shortly after the police arrived on the scene to do this wellness check, the officer who's involved in the shooting, um, who um, whose identity has not yet been released, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Um, Officer kind of walked around the perimeter. His body cam footage has been released. Um, the local news media that ran the story reports that this officer was seen on the body cam walking the perimeter of this individual's house. Um, at one point, made his way to the backyard, pulls out his flashlight to kind of see around, see what he's doing, and at some point looks into a window and sees an occupant in the house. Immediately draws his weapon and starts to yell commands at the subject that was that he could see through the window. And almost immediately after him yelling through the window for the occupant to put their hands up, um, fires a shot. And long story short, hit the occupant, who turned out to be the woman who is the resident of the home. And she dies on the scene not too long after, from her injuries resulting from that gunshot wound. Single shot. Um, no statement, of course, from the officer. This local news media did not report if the other police on scene or if any of the higher ups have released a statement. I will look around on this story to see if there is going to be, or if there was a statement, or press conference of some kind that may or may not come later on this morning, um, since this happened over the weekend. But a couple things stick out to me about this story. It's interesting. And it's just on the heels, and it's amazing to me that it's in Texas, just on the heels of this Amber Geiger case, where she walked into an individual's home, supposedly by mistake, according to her, and killed this individual, claiming that she thought she was in her own apartment. And now we have the police simply being called to a home to do a wellness check and ends up shooting the resident of that home. The story reports, the news media reports that there was a firearm found in the home after everything is settled down, but there was no report or statement as to what the proximity was of this individual and this firearm. Now, I will say this, because in this news report, they did point out that at no point in time did the police officer announce himself and identify himself as being a police officer. So now, if I'm in my home, right, who knows yet why the door was open? Who knows yet why the lights were on and the doors were open at 2 a.m.? But in my home, in my residence, where I pay to live, if I want to have my lights on at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever time it is, it's my prerogative. Maybe this woman didn't know her door was open. Maybe she did know. Who knows? Regardless of that, if I hear noise or ruffling around or footsteps or see flashlights in my backyard in the middle of the night, and who knows if this woman is the homeowner, if she's renting, who knows what the status of her occupying that residence was. But regardless, you live in that home, you are the resident of that home. That is your castle, so to speak, to protect. Now, if I hear footsteps, if I hear whatever, and I decide to come downstairs and look around my house, if I happen to have a firearm, and again, there's no reports of this woman having the firearm with her in her possession. They just said that the firearm was later found in the home. But I'm just jumping to the worst case scenario. Even if I did have a firearm and I'm patrolling my house because I hear footsteps or I happen to look out of a window and I see a flashlight in my backyard, that is my prerogative and my right, especially in the state of Texas, for me to then patrol my home with a firearm. Worst case scenario, right? Again, as the news media reports, this officer did not identify himself as a police officer, did not say what he was doing there. All he did was shout out commands to this individual. Now let's say, because again, there's been no report or no allegations of this woman having a firearm on her person, in her hands. Let's say there was no firearm in her hands, or it was somewhere else in the house, and this woman's just walking through her house for whatever reason, and I see somebody or a flashlight shining in my window and someone yelling. First of all, the time it takes at that time of night, who knows if she was half asleep, who knows if she had just woken up, who knows what the state of mind at that present time that this woman was in. And you hear somebody outside of your window shouting whatever it is they're shouting. One, who knows how audible that's going to be from the other side of a window. Didn't say if the window was closed or open, don't know, but regardless, you're probably a little bit out of it, probably a little disoriented. It's the middle of the night. Again, who knows if she was sleeping, who knows what her current mind state was, who knows if she was in her home drinking, who knows what the situation was. But you have this person on the other side of your window yelling. It's going to take you a few seconds to process. And again, this person is not identifying themselves as being a police officer. You don't know who this person is. And immediately after that, this officer fires a shot into a home through a window. Again, no call for anything violent that happened, no domestic violence call, no noise complaint, nothing. There was no reason for this officer to be there other than the fact that a neighbor called and said, hey, there's a front door open. This is my neighbor's house. It's in the middle of the night. I just want somebody to do a wellness check just to make sure that she's okay. And I'm sure when you do a call like that, there's questions asked on the phone. Any call that's placed into any police department or 911, there are questions asked. So I'm sure this neighbor said, this is my neighbor, gave her name, told him that it's a female, who typically is in the home. And I would imagine, because this neighbor even mentioned it in his statement, I told him that she lives there with her 8-year-old nephew, or that she was looking after her 8-year-old nephew. So now you have police officers showing up to a home to do a wellness check, knowing that there is a child who could be in the house. Why are you discharging your firearm and shooting into the home through a window? You don't know who's on the other side of that window. All you see is a figure. That could have been that 8-year-old kid. You don't know. And it's tragic, especially coming off the heels of what just happened with the Amber Geiger case. And I said this shit. I said it's going to come a point where people are going to be afraid to even move around their own house. And this neighbor now, in his statement, said he feels bad because all he did was call the police to make sure his neighbor was okay. And now he feels responsible that, she's dead now. And he feels like if he hadn't called the police, his neighbor would still be alive. And this is the thing that I want to mention too. This was one of the two things that I wanted to touch on. For all of the people who call police unnecessarily, that end in young, unarmed, whoever, whatever race, individuals being shot and killed because some nosy neighbor called the police about something that didn't necessarily need to be called, or maybe, didn't have to escalate to the point that it did, and someone ended up dead. With this situation, this neighbor had good intentions, but now going forward, and this neighbor even points it out, now I regret even calling them because it did not have to end this way. And so now, if the next neighbor in whatever city or whatever town, across America, who reads this story or who sees this video, it says, yeah, that's fucked up. Now, are people going to think twice about calling the police, even in situations where they're just trying to be helpful, for fear that the very person that they're trying to help is going to end up like this woman? Now, there's been no further details yet reported or released. I haven't seen the body cam footage yet. I'm going to search for it a little later to see if I can see it. But they have probably already redacted and taken out things that they don't want the public to see at this point. The other thing that's crazy to me that I wanted to touch on, the real reason why I wanted to do this this vlog. Why is it that every time there is a officer involved shooting and there is mystery around the situation and what led to the shooting and why the officer discharged and why the officer shot their weapon, I never understand. I mean, I get it from the standpoint of why it's explained that it's always done, but the police officer's name is never immediately released, which I think is crazy. You're a police officer. You are a sworn police officer, a civil servant. So your job, your position, your name, anything surrounding you being in the line of duty and anything that happens, in my opinion, should be considered public information. Fuck safety of the officer, and we don't want people, we don't want to put this officer in danger while the investigation is ongoing. You shot an individual who was unarmed, who was in their own home. You did not identify yourself as a police officer. Any other perp, any other suspect, any other arrested or charged individual for shooting someone would be released. It's usually the victim that's not released immediately. Why is it that these police officers are continue to be given every courtesy, every extension of benefit of doubt behind these shootings? I mean, this officer right now is on administrative leave. I can almost guarantee that it's paid leave. They say that the internal affairs unit for this police department is currently investigating. I should hope, because from what I'm reading in this story and from what it sounds like, this officer did not follow proper protocol, and you did not identify yourself as a police officer, and you're shooting into a home from the outside. You cannot properly assess a situation from the other side of a window in the middle of the night when it's pitch black outside, and you're not even responding to a hostile call. So I would hope, but I don't think it's going to go that way. I would hope that this officer is charged with something, but more than likely, they'll probably end up fired, if that. I will follow the story to see where it goes. I just wanted to bring this to your attention, but let me know what y'all think. Police officers involved in the line of duty shootings, particularly shootings that are questionable. Do y'all feel like their names should be released? The public should know who they are. I don't feel like they should be John Doe and Jane Doe and protected just because they're a police officer. I think we have the right to know, the same way we have a right to know when a suspect is charged for allegedly doing something, they're considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. So why is their name released? Why is their name dragged through the mud before they even have their day in court? If that's going to be the case, cool. Then these police officers should face that same situation, that same scenario. The public has a right to know who they are. But anyway, if y'all know about this story, if you've seen the body cam footage, if you've read the news reports, if you're close to the situation, let me know what you feel about it. Let me know what your thoughts are, what your assessments are. It's a social forecast. Like, comment, and subscribe. I don't pretend to know everything. Just know what I know. It's fucked up. See you on the next one. Peace and love.